Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy, and good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
Yes, so this morning you wanted to dive into how you get the most benefit out of human design in the Gene Keys. So, what can you do to help yourself navigate life knowing this information? So, what can you tell us? What does it do?
Well, first of all, I'm a 5-1 profile, and 5-1 profiles want to be practical. So it's interesting to think that way because it does feel more true to me than it has in the past. It's like I study all these things that most people would not consider practical. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, how's that practical? But my approach to these things is like, what has the most impact?
Mm-hmm.
So in human design, that's also my thing. It's like, okay, certain things don't seem very relevant to me in terms of how to live your life better. And I
Mm-hmm.
have always wanted to know the secrets. It's like I want to know what is the bedrock of things
Mm-hmm.
in my own particular area, right? Not in
Mm-hmm.
every area, obviously. So, to answer your question, first of all, become familiar with your strategy and your inner authority and start to figure out how those are operating in your life. That would be one of the first things because that's going to key you into alignment with your own design. Um, we have to be aware of how our energy is moving through the world,
Mm-hmm.
and basically that's what human design is telling us. What's your how does your energy operate? Um, Second, get you might you might be pulled into human design in a couple ways. You get a reading, maybe you respond as a generator and you think, "Oh my god, that sounds interesting." And maybe you get intellectually stimulated. Maybe you're a projector and you feel deeply recognized. So once you have that initial energy, that initial connection, then really lean into, okay, human design suggests that I would be perceptive in this way. Track that. Track the sense of bitterness or frustration in your life, and take that seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm feeling really bitter because of the interaction I just had in a particular area of my life as a projector. Okay, what does that tell me about whether I was misaligned or not? Okay, that was a fail. So what? Good. Learn from it. Go on. And so it's about enhancing your perception of self and others. That's probably one of the key things to lean into because that's where you're going to see the value.
Mm-hmm. So maybe just to help people, we could talk about what we found as benefits in human design. So for yourself, like how have you benefited from human design? What kinds of things has it enhanced in your life or make you come to certain understandings about?
Um, well, in this talk, I'm also including human design and gene keys, and
Oh yes.
I'll speak to both. Um, from a human design perspective, I would say it's really affected me. It's made me aware of the role of bitterness in my life, and I was well aware of that in myself, long before I met human design. So it gave
Mm-hmm.
me a way to understand that. Um, it helped change my behaviors by not seeking attention when I wasn't getting it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't chase after attention anymore. Another thing is it helped me realize, okay, I get very stimulated mentally, but I don't need to have all the answers because I'm undefined in the head. So it helped me let go of not not self behavior patterns linked to my undefined centers. Right now, what I'm really working on is the understanding that as a projector with an undefined sacral, I tend to overdo things. I tend to get I don't know when enough is enough, and so I do things too long, too much, stay up too late, and so I'm bringing awareness to that. And what I fully expect is that those will drop. That will drop away.
Mhm.
Um, oh, there's so many, but maybe you have some reflection on that.
Well, as a generator, one of the things that I can speak to is the need to respond. So it's like, and because I'm also defined in the head, I'm always like, oh, well, let's do this and this and this and this and this and try to fix it. Like, it's like I'm always looking for how to make things better or how to prevent things from happening or how do things go wrong or, and fix them before they go wrong. But one of the things that I've learned is it's just an automatic response for me to respond, and it may not be mine to respond to. So then I get totally exhausted or I get frustrated um, because I'm doing things that I shouldn't. I'm responding to things that are not mine to respond to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's one of the things, as well as the um, having the design and the personality in Gate 40 and that willpower and how it drives me not to give up, and then I can exhaust myself. Just just keep going, and not knowing when to let go of something, right?
Yeah, because
So
the 40 needs to rest too. Yes, it's good at working, but it also needs that rest.
yeah, and I believe that's the aloneness too, and then just taking that time to be alone and recuperate and regenerate, right? So those are a few of the insights, but I mean there's many, right?
Yeah.
Realizations about the incarnation cross, and talking about honor, and how I didn't understand why I would get so angry when people were not in integrity or doing things that were out of integrity, but as part of my design, you know. And so when I would do things that would go against my honor or who I was designed to be, then I would get sick, right? Like it would
Mm.
just like literally physically take a toll on my body. So understanding those kinds of things, helps you mentally and physically. I believe anyway.
Yes. And, I like how you put that, mentally and physically. Um, some of us get really excited about human design because it's really got a lot to think about. There's a
Mhm.
lot to chew on because it's a very complex system. Um, but the real benefit is when you start kind of saying, okay, this isn't about my mind. This is about how my actual organism operates.
Mhm.
And so I have to stop thinking about it as a mental knowledge that's going to help my life. I mean, it
Mhm.
can, it can have that effect, but the true value of it is going to be if I'm actually living energetically in a different way. If
Mhm.
that I'm actually having the experience of realizing that my body is going to my design is going to carry me into the future that I want.
Mhm. Yeah, I think some of the other things that come to mind too with that is when you talk about the mind, and because we dove into this together, and that is the quad right. So
Yeah.
I would always feel like, oh my God, like I can't remember this stuff. And I just read it, and like, why can't I remember it? And then knowing, when we took that deep dive into it and understanding that it's just a well, like I'm a well of information. I'm not supposed to hang on to it, but it comes up when I need it. That was a big shift in my paradigm for me.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
The variables are super powerful in sort of revealing how we're meant to operate.
Mhm. Or even when we dove into like the Venus sequence, and like the deeper you go, the more you see how things fit together, and the more understanding you have. One of the other things was the vengeful priestess thing, that thing, like, oh, that justice, like, you karmically, you need to get what you deserve, you hurt me, kind of thing. And
Mm.
learning that when that happens, that's in my design. So how do I open up to love in that? And that is to soften. So, and then how do you
Hmm.
soften? I mean, that's another whole exploration, right? How do you
Yeah.
soften when
Yeah.
somebody's just trampled all over you, right? So, I mean, and that speaks to the unconditional love, right? Yeah. Mhm.
And riffing on what you just said, that's been my experience too. It's like I'm very interested in fantasy fiction and mythology and archetypes and and to when I study my chart, I realize that all the things that I've long been interested in are reflected in my chart.
Oh, yeah.
You
That
know,
you're,
and
yeah.
there's that sense of it really does show what are the mythologies, what are the motivations that
Mhm.
are going to be driving a person in their life.
Mhm.
And it's very nourishing that way,
Mhm.
very validating.
Yeah.
And it has you look at it from the perspective of, oh, this is built in. And
Mhm.
human design says we're the passenger in the vehicle of our life. We're not the
Mhm.
driver. And
Mhm.
so that is one of the hardest things to grapple with, and something that I'm really beginning to see in my experience of my life is that I'm not in the driver's seat. I gotta learn to surrender and trust in the driver.
Mhm.
And to me that takes me back to it does remind me of some of my overall, underlying spiritual views, as a Christian. It's like,
Mhm.
the driver, God designed me, and I'm not the driver, I'm the passenger. It's like, be a good passenger.
Mhm. Well, I
Because
think
to
that's
me,
kind of deceiving too, the way that you put that, because we can design our life, and we choose how we react, and formulate that. But there is a basic underlying design that God gave us to live out. So if he designed you to be like an entrepreneur, eventually you're going to, take up that mantle and be an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form, right? But what that looks like is up to you. So you still have the free will. So it's kind of, like, are you the driver or are you not the driver? Well, you kind of are, because you have free will, but the the shape of the car or the design of the car that you're in is, that you're
it
moving, is the
makes for
same.
some very it makes for potentially some really interesting reflection on that, for
Hmm.
sure.
Exactly.
The and that's been an age-old debate between free will and fate, or free will and design,
Yeah. The ego
and
and the soul, like,
mm,
yeah, exactly. Hmm.
well, I mean, and that is sort of opens the door to talk a little bit about gene keys, because I find a lot of value in Richard Rudd's contemplative approach. So
Hmm.
there's the kind of all the dynamics and the intellectual candy of human design, but then there's this idea of things open and deepen
Hmm.
And, like a tea bag in water, these things become more deeply infused in you if you take a contemplative approach, if
Mhm.
you kind of soften into them, if you meditate with them, if you let yourself mull on them, in quiet moments of the day or when you're out for a walk.
Mhm.
Um, I find that valuable too.
Yeah. I think one of the things that comes to my mind also is knowing not only your design, but it's so useful once you understand human design and the gene keys when you look at someone else. We had an example the other day. And when when you were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so slow at getting, you know, these things
Mm,
done." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I understand that, but you understand that I'm designed to like push your buttons and like let's
yes,
go."
cross of
Right?
tension. It's
Yeah.
like,
So
what's out of balance here?
so when you understand that and you know that, you don't take things personally. So it doesn't become a personal attack. It becomes, oh, that person is designed that way. So what is it that, how does this interaction need to go? Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I think this could put this your point here could potentially bring a lot of peace to parents
Mm-hmm.
because I think I'm not a parent,
Mm-hmm.
but I have seen this in people that they're surprised by their children.
Mm-hmm.
And not just because they say cute things when they're little gaffers, but they're
Mm-hmm.
surprised that they're so different from them, that
Mm-hmm.
there's aspects of them that feel unfathomable to them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Would
But
you say
knowing,
that's true in your
yeah,
experience as a
like
parent?
I think too that because for me it's reflecting back because I'm now a grandmother rather than a mother. But there was things that my children would do when they were younger and I didn't understand why. Like one
Mm.
of my sons is a manifester, for example. Oh, and he had the worst temper and I like just didn't understand where it came from and you know but now reflecting back when we talk about human design and how they get angry when you're questioning them and they're you're trying to fit them into a box and they don't want to be in a box, right? um,
Yeah.
so yeah, like things start to make sense to me, right, when I look at it and I reflect on it. So I can only imagine how valuable this tool would have been when I was a new parent and was questioning all these things, like how do I deal with this child? And there must be information somewhere that tells me that there's an operator's manual kind of thing, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
kind of is, right?
It
Mhm.
is, yes. And I mean, for any parents out there struggling with understanding of their children, it would be nice to have human design as something as a tool in their toolbox rather
Mhm.
than thinking of other things that
Mhm.
parents will often think. Does my kid have some sort of, is there something wrong with them? Do they have a learning disability? Do they have
Mhm.
something else?
Yeah.
Having the space to understand, yeah, they're really different from you and they need um, there are ways maybe that you can modify the environment or the way that your household is operating so that are more they're more accommodated, if that
Yeah.
means.
Or the
Yeah,
language that you use when you speak to them, right?
yeah.
Because the language that you use when you speak to them is very different from one child to the other when they have a
Mm,
very different design, right? So maybe we can just touch a little bit about this, but you're actually doing a tea circle on April 10th.
yeah.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about that and what parents will gain from coming to that.
um, well, we're going to explore just these things that we're touching on here. It's like what what are the benefits of knowing your child's design and how might that help you in your holding them in the highest positive regard and seeing their potentials for what they are. And
Hmm.
it's also about it's a partnership between you and your children
Hmm.
because that your uniqueness as a parent is important too.
Hmm.
So you get to cultivate and honor your own uniqueness at the same time as this perspective helps you honor the uniqueness
Mhm.
and cultivate the uniqueness of your child at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So if anybody's interested in diving into that, and there's going to be a question and answer little period there as well, you can attend online or in person, and it's April the 10th at 6:30 here at Clair-i-tea. So yeah, just sign up through Eventbrite, or you can sign up here at Clair-i-tea. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
I feel like I should have some kind of funny tagline like you sometimes see,
Uh-huh.
like Carol Burnett or, people
Yeah.
have taglines. I mean, Human Design's tagline is, you are unique, you have no choice, love yourself.
Hmm.
So that's Human Design tagline. I'll borrow it today since I don't have my own.
All right. With that, we'll say God bless everyone. We'll see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m. And go out there and live your design.